Today's episode begins with a look at a small children's anthill, a large mini volleyball tournament for children between 6 and 9 years of age. This is precisely the age that interests us today, though not so much from the perspective of volleyball itself, but rather from the perspective of fundamental movement development. Of course, one day some of these children might pass like Galibov, set like Bartunyek, or spike like Indra, who all delivered fantastic performances at the last World Championship. But the road to a championship is long. In previous episodes, we showed what volleyball looks like for 14-year-olds and what proper technique should look like. Today we have a different task, to look at the very beginning.
First, we develop the child, and only then the volleyball player. At this age, the focus is not on precise technique, but on joy of movement and overall motor versatility. We speak of the so-called fundamental phase, which roughly between the ages of 6 and 9 for boys and 6 and 8 for girls, builds the very foundations of movement. The game format and demands should therefore reflect the developmental needs of the child rather than the simple calendar age. After all, the calendar is precise, but children do not grow according to it. Two players of the same age may be very different in coordination, attention, self-control, courage, or willingness to learn new movements. It is important to take into account differences in physical, psychological, cognitive, and emotional development, because every child grows in their own way. Let us repeat it once more. We are not training a small volleyball player in the narrow technical sense. We are training a child who should learn to run, break, change direction, jump and land safely, throw and catch a ball, maintain balance, and understand the space around them. These are essentially the building blocks of movement, locomotor actions, work with a ball or other object, and the ability to maintain body stability. Only later are these simple blocks used to build the more complex house called sport.
Above all, the child should explore the world of movement, games and varied activities that awaken body awareness, spatial orientation, basic strength, locomotion, and stability. In this way, the child gradually builds their own movement and ball vocabulary. It includes running, jumping, throwing, and catching, but also agility, balance, coordination, and speed. Everything upon which later sports learning is built.
At the same time, it is important that children experience a piece of real volleyball from the very beginning. This is exactly what the project Mini Volleyball in Colors is designed for. Yellow Mini Volleyball is intended for children between 6 and 8 years of age. The ball is caught and thrown to a teammate, who catches it and sends it over the net. The rules allow two-handed throws, but for a child, it is more beneficial to throw with one hand. At this stage, that is enough. The child needs to learn to throw, catch, estimate the trajectory of the ball, and orient themselves on the court. The teaching of throwing technique can remain in school physical education. Our main goal is to play. It is the game itself that teaches what is most volleyball-like: to follow the flight of the ball, to position oneself correctly in space, and to sense where the empty area on the opponent's court is. The game is played in pairs on a court measuring 4.5 by 9 meters with the net at a height of 195 centimeters, usually with a lighter ball and without running while holding the ball in the hand. An adult volleyball player might argue that this is not yet volleyball, and they would be right, but not entirely. What matters is that children experience the joy of a game that resembles volleyball.
The next step is orange mini volleyball for children roughly between 7 and 9 years of age. Here the ball is tossed by the player and then set with the fingers to a teammate who catches it, tosses it, and sends it over the net, and later sends it directly without catching. The game is again played in pairs on the same court with the same net height, although beginners may stand closer to the net. Even here, the focus is not yet on technique. The child is discovering a simple law of volleyball. The player has only one contact. And when the play begins with a one-handed throw, the first feeling of a future serve appears. Sometimes children even try small volleyball tricks, for example, searching for an empty space on the opponent's side or looking in a different direction from where they send the ball. And mistakes? They are perfectly fine. They just must not take away the children's desire to play. Volleyball cannot be played with fear, but it can certainly be played with joy. And that joy is the most important thing at the beginning.
And so we return once again to the most fundamental element, movement. Squats, lunges, crawling, various supports, and small obstacle courses develop basic strength and teach the child to control and manage their own body. At this stage, the goal is not to teach volleyball as quickly as possible. Rather, it is about preparing the ground, giving the body movement confidence, health, and the mind a desire to keep moving. The aim is that the child moves safely, with joy, and one day becomes ready to truly learn volleyball. Sport in childhood develops the so-called executive, or if you prefer regulatory, functions of the brain, especially when movement is not mere exercise but a small adventure involving decision-making, changing situations, and tasks that must be solved by one's own thinking.
Research shows that systematic exercises focused on neuromuscular control and landing technique can improve the biomechanics of landing. For example, by encouraging natural flexion in the hips and knees and reducing certain risky movements associated with injuries. A soft, controlled and repeatable landing is therefore a skill worth developing from the very beginning, rather than waiting until the child becomes a competitive athlete.
And the freedom we support at this age does not mean chaos. It simply means that the main teacher should be the game itself. For example, the official long-term development model of Volleyball Canada suggests that at this stage about half of the time should be devoted to free play, about 1/3 to guided play led by an adult, and only a small portion to direct instruction. After all, childhood is a rehearsal for life.
We recommend small game formats, from 1-against-1 to 3-against-3, shorter training sessions, and as much diversity of movement experience as possible. At this age, a well-prepared play environment benefits the child far more than long coaching monologues. And since we are, after all, volleyball people, we conclude with a small game from the Mini Volleyball in Colors project. This time, red mini volleyball.